Alaikum and welcome to Women's AM. It is the last show of the week and the last show of 2016. Can you believe it? We end this year with a discussion on Down syndrome, what we should know and understand about it. And at the end of the show, we'll be talking about the sales. I'm Ayan, and on the panel with me this morning, we have Sister Nusrat, a law graduate and a writer. And we have our special guest this morning, Sister Jihad Sardood, a special needs teaching assistant. Assalamu alaikum, sisters.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you both doing this morning?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, I'm glad to have you both here. Now, Sister Jihad, mashallah, you are a teaching assistant at a special needs school. Tell us what actually made you become a teaching assistant?
Well, I did my degree in graphic design, so a very creative degree. And I felt like every brief and project that I was given from one of my teachers, I'd always kind of base it on education, and particularly kids with special needs, because of the outcome I'd get was very different and unexpected. So before I wanted to do a teaching degree, but I said I'd have more experience within classroom, and yeah.
Oh, mashallah. And how are you finding that experience?
Alhamdulillah, overwhelming.
Really?
Yeah, at the beginning it was like, oh my God, am I going to be great at this role? Because you're always worried, especially with special needs kids, you want to make sure that you're doing your absolute best and whether they can benefit from you as well as you benefiting from them.
Oh, that's really beautiful. And you teach children with Down syndrome as well as children with other special needs?
Yeah, so our school, we have a range of special needs. So we have from ADHD to autism to Down syndrome, kids who have been tube fed. So.
And do you feel that you've learnt a lot more being in that role now about the different disabilities that exist?
Yes, definitely. When you're working in such an environment where it has its absolute highs and it has absolute lows, you kind of learn to coordinate and be very flexible, because in the morning could be absolutely fantastic, you won't be having any emotional outbursts or anything like that, and in the afternoon it will just be something else.
So you have to possess like a good level of patience.
Yes, a good level of patience and consistency, because kids in particular, Down syndrome in particular, they can sense when you're feeling very anxious or feeling very down or angry. So you just got to be very consistent.
MashaAllah. And what would you say is one of the sort of the best moments, I think, in your TA experience so far?
So far, it was so the end of term. It was almost like getting the Christmas show ready, and getting everything together for the end of term. And you could just see sometimes, the kids from how they started in September to how they have improved. I got really emotional, and it's things like when they can recognise colours or know the number in order without you in giving any prompts. It makes me emotional. And I'm just like, this is amazing. I'm so happy to be part of this experience and to be part of that child's life, and you get to know their families and their backgrounds, which is it's amazing.
MashaAllah, may Allah reward you and keep you on that path to success, inshallah, and continue helping these children. Now, moving on to this morning's stories of interest in News Bites. And I know, Nusrat, you've got a particularly interesting article for us this morning.
I've come across an article that makes us think about creating spaces for women to be creative, and it's entitled "Meet the Hollywood Rejects, Helping Thousands of Women to Be Bossy," and this was published in the Telegraph. So essentially, these two women named Joanna and Laura have made a Facebook group where women who are into the creative and artistic fields, so whether that's things like acting or performing arts or things like physical art like fine art, they've made these space whereby they can exchange ideas, and if there's any upcoming plays or anything, you can call in need of directors. So essentially it's a form of skill exchange. And what prompted them to do this was due to the low levels of women, and not only entering these fields, but actually having jobs in these fields and being recognised for their work. And to cite a statistic, it said a decade ago, 30% of new plays produced in the UK theatres were written by women. And in 2013, it was 31%. So clearly, there's been a gender disparity in how women are portrayed or having their foot in the door when it comes to the artistic fields. And I think it's great where young women can actually have a space where it's just their space and they can have skill exchange, and they can allow their work to be showcased in a platform whereby it wouldn't have been easy.
But do you not think that, with a group that's exclusively for women, they're kind of, I don't know, they're making their problems, you know, only known to themselves rather than engaging also the men who work within this field to kind of educate them about what it is that they're going through and the hardships that they're facing as women who are trying to break into these creative fields. Do you not feel that this is a bit divisive in a sense?
To an extent, I feel that it's great to create these spaces, but I think in order to kind of have your voice being heard, it doesn't require you to be actually engaging with mainstream. So if there is a shortage or if there is a disparity in gender when it comes to your field, you should make that amplified and perhaps work with the mainstream or the males in your industry. Likewise, if there's a disparity, for example, in employment in certain fields, you can make that known, and as a result of this, perhaps initiatives can be made to try and equalise that disparity and make it on par with the men in that sense.
Yeah, and Sister Jihad, do you feel that, you know, choosing the name Bossy was the right way to go? I mean, it's about exchanging sort of skills and contacts and that sort of thing. And there's a negative connotation with the word bossy in women.
Yes.
What do you think? What do you think of the group?
I like the name. I personally like the name. I think what they've created, I mean, we were talking earlier, you know, there's one thing, you know, where you upload something on Twitter or on Instagram, or you say that you're going to do something, but then it's another thing where you actually create. It's almost like a community, and I think it's fantastic because from my personal experience, I went to a university where it was just white middle class. It was an art school, and being the only Muslim with a hijab on my course was very difficult to kind of, you know, stand up in presentations and to, you know, give my opinion or to present my work. So the fact that there's this, you know, this group that are all female, it kind of builds your confidence a bit, knowing that there is support outside of uni or just outside of work, and you can be free.
It's kind of like Lyrically Speaking, for example. The fact that platform has been created for women to showcase their spoken word. So that can be something that,
I think it's interesting. I think because a lot of the time, you know, when you think about sort of the creative industry, you would think that because it is a creative industry, it is an industry where, you know, people's sort of freedom of expression and art forms are, you know, sort of told, well, look, you know, this is a place where you can express those things without, you know, being, you know, judged or anything like that. You'd feel that people would be more comfortable. But I think when you see, you know, articles like this talking about the fact that women feel the need to create a space for themselves, it does kind of show that however much we like to think that creative fields are a little bit more open, you know, it's still quite a male-dominated sort of area. And you hear lots of stories coming out of, like, you know, Hollywood and other industries where, you know, women are, you know, kind of judged, you know, when she gets to a very certain, you know, a very high level of her field, you know, people are kind of dubious about how she got there, you know, say, oh, well, she must be very friendly with the producer because I can't see how else she got up there, you know. And it's quite interesting that there is this sort of lack of appreciation towards women and sort of the hard work that they try to put in to get to where they are. I mean, what do you feel about sort of this idea that, well, she must be friendly with the producer to get to where she is?
I think that may be true of individuals, but I think to say that it's something that's wholly representative of women is not the reality. Majority of women that work in creative fields, just like in any other field, or even any other person, regardless of gender, is that it requires hard work to get to the top of your field, whether that's creativity, whether that's in the creative field or in fields of academia or whatever. And I feel that these provisions should allow women to continue their hard work and actually reap the rewards of it. So I think that these kind of platforms like Bossy or Lyrically Speaking should actually encourage women even more to go into things like not only creative industries, but to also get to the top on their own terms. And I feel that with some women, they feel that in order to get to the top, they don't do it on their own terms. It means that they have to succumb to kind of a notion of what it means to be at the top or what they have to do to get there. And that's not the case. You don't have to necessarily sacrifice your spirit or integrity in order to reach the greater heights in your field or in your calling.
This is true. But you know what's been interesting, I think, is in the last few months, there have been a lot of articles that have been coming out about, you know, the misogyny that women, you know, face on social media. And there were statistics saying that almost half of that misogyny was coming from women themselves. And, you know, when you see, you know, groups created by women for women, you know, it helps to kind of, you know, assure you that okay, not all women are like this. There are women out there who are supportive, but how much do you feel are, the sincerity is with all women in this group? Do you feel that all women are there to kind of help benefit one another, or are there some there who are trying to basically take advantage? Because we can't deny the fact that there are predatory types of people out there.
Yeah, you can't, like, sometimes when you're just on social media and you kind of see these really horrible comments on, on a woman who's doing her best and is being creative, and you think to yourself, it's like, why? We should be, religiously, we're all one ummah, regardless whether she's doing this or you're doing that, you should be supporting each other. But yeah, I do question sometimes whether their intentions are like, aren't you slightly jealous? Or, because we're humans at the end of the day, we're bound to feel like, she's a higher status than myself, but you could have worked a lot harder than me, so
I think I think there's always, you have to kind of take everything with a pinch of salt, isn't it, nowadays? I think, we've kind of gotten to the point where we realise that not everyone is out there, with the best of intentions.
And
it's
just quite sad.
It is, I was about to say that.
It's really sad. I find that because, there's always that hadith that you'd want for your brother, what you want for yourself, you'd want for your brother, and it should be, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish, it should be the same thing.
I think hating on other people has always been there since the beginning of time. I mean, the first example of it was Cain and Abel. So that clearly it's something that matters. But I think that while there may be people who are jealous, that should not stop us from reaching our potential. And who knows, maybe seeing somebody who's more successful than yourself could actually inspire you to attain that height. And as long as they're not doing something to actively sabotage what you've done, I don't think that in itself should, someone else's jealousy or their ill will should be enough to deflect what you're doing. I think, if anything, just continue on the path of success, really.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good advice. Alhamdulillah. So some interesting thoughts there, alhamdulillah, on this morning's article, but it is now time for a quick break. We will see you in a few minutes, inshallah, where we'll be discussing living with Down syndrome. We'll see you after this. Assalamu alaikum.
I graduated, and it has been a long process. It was for 4 years studying.
MashaAllah.
And
you did it, you made it.
Alhamdulillah.
On the other side. Alhamdulillah. You don't have to look at another book for a while.
Oh dear. I know.
Oh gosh.
What about you, Nusrat? What's been your highlight?
I think one of the highlights for me is seeing my sister go to uni. I mean, like, seeing her literally, that kind of finishing line where you're actually finishing year 13 and you've just been studying so hard. And then that kind of relief, just seeing the look of relief on her face as well. I think that's been something that's been great for 2016 as well. And kind of just seeing her, because sometimes I think I baby her up a lot and think that, oh, she's all really cute and stuff. And she's just like, I passed. And I'm just like, I still consider her a bit of a baby, but that's quite a milestone when you actually can't believe how old you are seeing.
Are you feeling quite old then?
Yeah, feeling quite old. Feeling very old.
Oh, but mashallah, it's very, very sweet. I think when you're able to kind of celebrate a family member or somebody that you've known, for, their own milestones in life, you can't help but feel that this, I don't know, it makes you feel a little bit special that you're part of that. Yeah, and it's quite beautiful because you were talking about that with the kids that you're teaching at the school as well, mashallah. Yeah. I think it is quite a lovely thing. I think for me, the highlight of 2016 has been getting through a difficult year. I think for me, on a personal note, it has been a difficult year. And alhamdulillah, I think coming to the end of it, I think I'm saying alhamdulillah because I've got through those difficult moments. So I think that's the positive for me. I think it could have gone so much worse than it has, but it hasn't. So I think I say alhamdulillah, the things are ending the way that they have. So that's my personal sort of highlights. So yeah, but jazakumullah khairan for sharing that with me. Now going on to our main discussion in Her Views, where today we are talking about Down syndrome. Now, Down syndrome is a condition that affects 775 children each year in England and Wales. But how much do we know about the condition and how it affects children growing up? Are we doing enough to include these individuals as part of our community? Now, if you want to call in, remember the number is on your screen now and you can join in the discussion. Maybe you have a child or a family member who has Down syndrome and you'd like to share the highs and lows of that and help us to understand what it's like as well. So Jihad, I'm going to come to you first. For anyone that's watching today who probably have heard the term Down syndrome but don't know exactly what that is, could you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Okay, so Down syndrome is a condition where the child is born with an extra chromosome. So a chromosome is what's built within our cells. And a child without Down syndrome would have 46 chromosomes, so 23 from the mum and 23 from the dad. But a child with Down syndrome would have 47. And it's physical. You can see when a child has Down syndrome, they have kind of certain features. It will affect their speech delay. I mean, each child is different. It'll either be speech delay, it'll be physical delay, hearing, sight. It varies, behaviour, challenging behaviour. And there are children who actually have dual Down syndrome, which is a mix of autism and Down syndrome.
So there's a lot to learn about Down syndrome then.
Yes.
It's not just a physical thing. I think a lot of the time when people think of Down syndrome, they only think about the physical attributes.
Yeah.
So they know that they have a particular look,
Yes.
and it's recognizable.
Yeah.
And so people think it's just about the way that they look. But it's a little bit more than that. So Nusrat, kind of breaking it down a little bit further for us, what are some of the other things that we can take note in terms of Down syndrome and what we should know about it?
Well, the fact is that sometimes with the child, their cognitive and psychological development can be delayed as a result, and it's something that Down syndrome is something that can range from mild to severe in terms of the physical symptoms. So I think while people may have a physical idea, mental idea, should I say, of what Down syndrome is, it can range on a spectrum. For some children, it's relatively mild and it's quite easily manageable, and for some, it can be quite severe. And that's something to kind of take away as well. But the fact is, it was actually first identified by Dr. John.
You know, it's somebody within your family. And I think this is why, as a community, we need to engage with people within the community who have children who have disabilities.
Also to kind of just know that there are support around you. I mean, from what I know, in every borough there is like a community or a play centre specifically for special needs, and every special needs centre will have that one Down syndrome child or that two Down syndrome child, or adults even, you know, so it's really important that we educate ourselves, and it's not a taboo. This again is a blessing, and you know, it's amazing.
And I think we could learn a lot. I think this is the thing. I think we have this sort of high and mighty attitude, isn't it? That if somebody has a disability, then it's all about us giving, when in actual fact we learn a lot more as well.
Of course. I, to be honest, in the space of September and last week, what I have learned is it's amazing, you know, knowing when something's about to kick off, and like I mentioned earlier, just to be able to have that consistency and to be really calm. It's a must.
And you know, if we look back, you know, because we talk about the fact that, you know, as Muslims, you know, we go back to the Quran and Sunnah as our reference point for everything in life. What examples can we find within Islam and our history that actually, you know, teaches us about, you know, how to treat people who may have disabilities, Sister Jihad?
I mean, obviously, to start off, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had taught his ummah to be kind of very accepting, regardless whether you have special needs or no special needs, Down syndrome or no Down syndrome. We're all one, alhamdulillah. But there was authentic hadith written by Tirmidhi, where it was on one of the companions of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam called Julaybib, where he was known as the ugly man. And you know, he was very he looked in a particular way. I mean, some hadiths would say he looked like a dwarf. You know, he just wasn't very accepting, and the word and the name Julaybib was an ugly name, subhanallah. And you know, he had a struggle throughout his life because he really wanted to get married, but every father would, you know, reject him and wouldn't want him to marry their daughters. And there was one father where he rejected him, and then the daughter of the father heard and said, Ya Abi, Ya Rasulullah, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came to us and has asked us for our hand, for your daughter's hand in marriage, not for Rasul ﷺ, but for someone else. So it's a recommendation. Yani it's a big deal, you know, and it's amazing how we just, again, have to be very accepting, and regardless whether he has special needs or no special needs.
I think
it's human. He's a human being.
I think it's beautiful, because I think even for the daughter herself to kind of, you know, tell her dad, you know, he was recommended by the Prophet ﷺ, you know, you need to give him a chance, don't just turn him away.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another thing, you know, being able to give that person a chance, you know, whether it's for marriage, whether it's for a job, whether it's for anything, you know, nowadays. it's really important.
And the interesting thing of this story is that the Prophet ﷺ did not try and sweep under the carpet Julaybib's oppression. And when Julaybib served in battle, when he died, the Prophet ﷺ says, I am of him and he is of me. So we find that even within this story, we are told that we should apply an approach of love and compassion to such people. And if anything, they are God's creation as well. And any kind of discriminatory or horrible behavior, attitudes towards these people is generally wrong and will be rebuked in that sense. We even have this in Surah Baqarah, verse 286, where Allah says, after all, God has promised us that our lives are a test for us. Degrees and forms of our trials vary from per burden laid upon him that is greater than what he can bear. So for parents or family members or people close to them that are experiencing some difficulties in raising a child with Down syndrome, you should know that one, you're not alone, and two, your tests are not something that define who you are, but you should just make the best out of them.
I think that's a beautiful reminder, and I think it tells us that, no one's life is perfect. I think, there's this idea that, if you have a child with a disability, that your life is over, and I think, people have this really sort of strange idea about what it is to be a parent and to have children, and people think that it's going to be all rainbows and laughter. And the thing is that whether you have a child with disability or not, being a parent is challenging anyway.
Yes.
Raising children is challenging anyway. But when you have a child with disabilities, it just means that these challenges are different.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you have an even more of a challenge than somebody whose children don't have disabilities. It just means that those challenges are now different. And I think we have to take that into account. And like the ayah says, to accept it. And I think once you learn to accept it, then you're able to move forward in a manner that will be good for you and good for them. But before we go, because we are wrapping up this part of the discussion, unfortunately, what services or support is there out there, Jihad, for anyone who has a child with Down syndrome?
So there are many charities. There's one in particular called the Down Syndrome Association, where they do training for parents, for teachers, for TAs. They're based around London and Wales, so they're amazing. They're able to support you. They're able to give you strategies if your child has behaviour problems, and they're amazing. They've helped me personally. They're good people to contact.
Are there others that you can that you've kind of come across as well, Nusrat, in terms of support?
I think when you're dealing with that, when your child's in school, whether it's a mainstream school or not, always get in touch with the teacher as well. That you can always learn all you can. There's so many resources out there as well. And it's also important to get help when you feel that you need help, but you also, as the caregiver, as the parent, you also need to have your time as well. So make sure that as much as you're taking care of your child, don't forget to self-care as well.
That's a really important message, and Jazakumullah khair for that, sisters. Having a child with Down syndrome brings its share of challenges, but also a share of joys. However, collectively, we have yet to recognise that Down syndrome is not something which has to be avoided or hidden. Rather, we need to actively ensure that these special individuals are included in our community, as exemplified in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. If you've missed any of today's show, you can catch a repeat tonight at 11 p.m. or you can catch up with the highlights from this week at Sunday at 3 p.m. We are off to another break, but do stay with us, because when we're back, we'll be talking about the sales and some top tips. So stay tuned for that. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Women's AM. Now this is the last segment of this year's show. So alhamdulillah, we'll be talking about the sales and top tips. What can we do to avoid the madness and get the best out of it? Now I know myself, I avoid the sales like the plague. I don't engage in the sales whatsoever. So I have nothing to give of input. But maybe you guys can give me some ideas, and that might inspire some ideas from myself. So Jihad, I'll come to you first.
I would say online. I went to Westfield, London on Monday. To be fair, it was like, I need to go. It was within half an hour I left. I was like, this is too much. People are just buying for the sake of Boxing Day. And to be fair, I went into the shops and the sales were quite crap.
Yeah.
They were quite bad, I mean, I'd say online.
So you didn't think that there was anything worth buying when you went to see?
I mean, it's obviously, I'd say wait until maybe January sale and then
that's
purchase
good
it online. You never know, but yeah.
What about buying, during the sale for the next season? Because we know a lot of the times they do tend to stock things that they haven't been able to sell off in the year. So what would you say to kind of those who say, well, I've got to, this is the only time that I can stock up on certain things?
The thing is, you can engage in the sales. Alhamdulillah, if you can get something cheaper than you would have paid for, that's great. But we need to kind of practice some moderation here. It's good to stock up on things that would be slightly cheaper. I know that generally socks and knitwear is generally the preferred ones, but or also technological gadgets that would have cost more any other time of the year. That's great. But there needs to be some kind of restraint. I can actually relate to what Jihad has seen. Some of the things that I've seen, I'm just thinking, wow, people acting as though it's literally the last day, as if it's literally the end days. There will be stuff, and in a lot of cases, the longer you wait, something nice would come up, but you don't feel the need to just buy everything and anything because it's Boxing Day. I like to sometimes employ more of what I call the lurker type of mentality. The lurker mentality is that you only buy the thing that you've actually thought, okay, maybe it will be cheaper this year, but you have an idea of what it is. You don't just go aimlessly. You should have a goal of what it is that you want to buy for that. So I think that as long as you have good planning, you know exactly what you want, and you have moderation. I know that sometimes online shopping as well can be quite addictive. Just practice that.
I think that's an interesting point that you made there, and I think a lot of the times people do think that because it's the sale, because things are cheaper, I'm just going to go, you know, not necessarily mad. No one goes with that intention, but I think because people don't have a clear plan of what they want to buy, they will overspend. So yes, it's the sale. Yes, things are cheaper, but you can overspend even during this time. You know, you'll walk away looking at your receipt thinking, "What have I done?"
Yeah.
You know, because
what have I bought?
Yeah, exactly. And I think having
Why?
it's very important. It's a lot like, you know, shopping on an empty stomach. You know, just don't do that. Go there knowing what you want, and then make sure you stick to that. And I think that's a really good plan. Also, maybe waiting, like you said, waiting till January, because I remember some years back, I remember going to the January sales, and I only had one thing that I wanted to get, which was a winter jacket for my son. So I thought, let me see if I can get something for him for next winter, because obviously he's starting to grow out of his current jacket. So I went there, amazing. I found the nicest, warmest puffer jacket you could imagine for £9.
Oh wow!
That's good.
Which would have probably been 30.
Yeah, at a really good brand. At a really good brand. So I thought to myself, okay, you know, it makes sense to wait for the sales, to wait until maybe it's not as crowded. I think even with the crowd, it's not always the best thing, because people get into a crazy sort of mentality when they're in crowds, isn't it?
Yeah, in your personal space, and it's like, take it easy, it's not going to go anywhere.
If you think of generally just the animal instinct that people have, naturally we are creatures that always want more. But if you've noticed the difference between us and animals generally, is that some animals they never take more than they need. So when they go hunting, they only take what's appropriate for them, and that's it. We haven't really got that level of restraint. If we do, it's to varying degrees. I think the best thing to kind of employ is that eye up that one thing that you've wanted, because I think there's also prioritization as well. If it's something that you really need, and you know generally at other points of the year it would be quite pricey and in a lot of cases overpriced, kind of employ the lurking technique where like you've been eyeing it for some time and then you go and get it. But I feel that also during sales, people lack etiquette. You see things all over the floor, and I think that even do that is a form of disrespect to the people that have to clean that up as well.
That's actually a really good point, and I think making it more than just about ourselves. I think because when we do think about the sales and shopping, we think about ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, what do I need? You know, or what do my children need? Or what do my siblings need? And I think it's also a good opportunity that because things have been reduced in price, it's like the best time to even go out and buy things for others. You know, even for charity. If you know that someone's in need, if you know that there's somebody in your community who's lacking, I think it's the best time to kind of take opportunity of the fact that you can get them what they need, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg either. So I think it's sort of a win-win situation in that sense as well. So I think making yourself useful and making the sales more than just about material, and making it even maybe almost a spiritual sort of, I know that sounds silly, making shopping a spiritual experience, but you can, I think, with the right intention. I think if you're doing this for someone else, I think it can be. So, so yes, you heard it from me, shopping can be spiritual, but obviously with the right intention. Jazakumullah khairan for your tips there. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of today's show and this year's very last show, but do join us again on Monday at 11 a.m. for a discussion on reflections and lessons learned in 2016. I'd like to say Jazakumullah khairan to our sisters on the panel and to our special guest, Sister Jihad, for coming on today, and of course to the viewers at home. Have a wonderful Jum'ah tomorrow and a lovely weekend, inshallah. Please remember to love for your brother what you love for yourself. Assalamu alaikum.
Langdon in the 1860s, but it wasn't until the 1970s that was actually called Down syndrome. So that's kind of the thing. And I think ever since the 70s now, there have been screenings for Down syndrome in children with expectant mothers. And in 1983, the life expectancy of somebody with Down syndrome was 25 years old, and now they can live well into their 60s. So there have been medical developments in trying to improve life expectancy and life chances of people.
That's quite interesting to understand that there is a spectrum. I think, you know, when people tend to think about Down syndrome, I think the ones who know a little bit about Down syndrome always have this wonderful rosy idea of what it's like to have a family member with Down syndrome or a child with Down syndrome. And I think, you know, looking at, you know, the few television appearances that we have of, you know, actors who have Down syndrome or stories portraying people with Down syndrome, I think it's always, you know, on a spectrum where it's not severe, I think. And a lot of people tend to think, well, it's not that bad, you know. They're mostly just cute and innocent and very happy and smiley, but it's a little bit more than that. How does Down syndrome affect children who actually grow up with this, Sister Jihad?
I mean, I had, working at the school I'm at the moment, you get to go on trainings and stuff, and I was, because we have 2 Down syndrome children in our class, and I was given to go on training for Down syndrome with the Down syndrome charity. And each child is very different. I mean, you know, there are some who have really bad, like, low speech. They can't talk at all, so you use sign language, Makaton. And there are ones who are able to speak but have really bad behaviour, and it's very difficult to maintain. And you always see the parents, and they're the ones that are struggling the most. And, you know, I'm only speaking based on my experience from what I see at work. And it is a challenge. It's difficult to kind of, you know, maintain them because they have their emotional outbursts from anywhere. You know, there's no kind of transitions, there's no build up to it. It will just come out of nowhere.
And you have to know how to manage that as well. I think trying to kind of, you know, ease that situation, which obviously isn't easy. But what are some of the physical sort of setbacks with someone who has Down syndrome? Because we do understand that there are some physical sort of, not restrictions per se, but things that they're not able to do physically or that's a little bit difficult for them because of the Down syndrome. What are some of these things?
So there are some who have really bad balance. So their feet, from what I know, they're developed in a certain way where they kind of develop inwards. So when they're running, their balance is almost like on edge, you know, you're worried that they're going to fall over. They have a very good grip, a very good grip. I mean, I remember one of the kids at work, you know, was holding onto my arm, and it was very difficult to let go. Mashallah, she has a really good grip, so you need to be careful because I have delicate bones too. So it's physical development, which is quite bad.
And how else can we look at some of the effects of Down syndrome on children who are growing up with this condition?
Well, there are potential problems that can emanate from it as well. We find that there's an increased risk for leukemia and thyroid problems as well that happen with Down syndrome children, and also like hearing and visual problems as well. Not in all, but sometimes it can increase the likelihood of that happening. And there's also a greater susceptibility to like minor health problems. So, for example, colds, like the common colds more specifically, ear infections, bronchitis. So I think that because of that, we have to be more aware of the susceptibilities to minor health problems and other health issues as well, in addition to their Down syndrome.
I mean, so far we've focused on, you know, sort of the physical attributes, some of the challenges that children with Down syndrome will come up against. But what are some of the rewards of, you know, raising or teaching a child with Down syndrome? Because I'm sure there are numerous. I think everyone, even with children who have no disabilities, there are a lot of challenges in any case. But what are some of the joys and rewards of working and being around children with Down syndrome?
They're very affectionate and very warm. I'm sure people that they see a Down syndrome child, they go, oh, he's so cute, or she's so adorable. But they can definitely sense if you're feeling very upset or feeling anxious about something. You know, they come and hug you, or they'll just, you know, give you affection. So they're very affectionate in that sense. And then again, there's that beauty where if they do have speech delay, or, you know, they have problems with their hearing or their sight, and at some point they say a certain word or they see something, and, you know, they say, oh, this, and it's like, oh wow, this is amazing. You know, I'm so happy that, you know, you've managed to establish what this object is, or what this colour is, or what this number is. So those are the rewards.
I think, we were talking about milestones and witnessing somebody's milestones, and I think that's quite beautiful. I think as a teacher and as a parent, I think when you are going through a lot of challenges, and then your child, you know, learns and picks something up, and they're able to demonstrate what they've learned, it is a moment of pure joy and a moment of pride, and you think, oh, you know, there is progress, there is something, you know, that's happening. You know, they are changing and benefiting, no matter how slow the change. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They get disheartened, you know, when they learn that their child has a disability, and they think that's it, it's the end of the road for them. And, you know, but there is always, you know, progress to be made, no matter how severe a situation is.
You know what? It's even like one of the things, one of the rewards, and actually not necessarily benefits per se, but one of the most rewarding things that you can actually find is that with children with Down syndrome, because they're so affectionate, they tend to be sometimes more emotionally intelligent than other people, which I think is a very good quality to have. You'll find that with some parents as well, who may find it very difficult to teach their children, particularly parents that are involved in homeschooling, they find that actually if they are homeschooling a child that has Down syndrome, they find that they get to explore different ways of learning. So because they're more understanding of how the child learns, so for example, a child may learn through colour, a child may learn through sound, a child may learn through touching and being involved in the activities, even if it's something like counting money for maths or scientific experiments that you're doing at home, not obviously the kind of big eureka moments, but the fact is, with parents, you get to learn more about your child, and it's almost like a bonding kind of session as well. So I think that there are so many rewards that actually come out of it as well, and you find the best learning style for your child. If your child is having some problems with communication, for example, because with some Down syndrome children, they may not be able to verbalize something, so sign language can be used in its place, and they explore different ways of communication, which I think is beneficial not only to the child but to the parent. Because if anything does happen, or anything that threatens the health in any kind of way, you at least have another mode of communication.
I think that's really beautiful, and I think it forces you as well as a parent, as a teacher, to kind of think outside of the box. I think we have very sort of rigid ideas of how to teach children, you know, and whatever it may be. And I think when you have a child with Down syndrome, it makes you kind of take a step back and think, okay, you know, obviously I have to cater towards this child's needs, and I have to take into account what they're good at and what they're not good at, and that forces you to learn skills that you didn't previously have.
Definitely.
So have you been forced into learning particular skills?
So at work we were given a book to kind of read to the children. It was The Hare and the Tortoise, and at an ordinary school, a mainstream school, you'd sit together on the carpet and you'd read through the book. However, the kids that we have that have Down syndrome are very sensory. So they like to touch things, they like to, you know, use their senses. So we transformed that story into a sensory story. So it was things like using sand as part of, you know, the floor, or kind of masking tape around the classroom, and experiencing, you know, when the tortoise was really slow or when the hare was really fast. So obviously letting them experience that story, as well as being involved with like the tactile.
And how did they respond to that?
Amazing, they love it. So the sand, you know, they were putting it on their face, and some were eating it. The Play-Doh, I mean, because it's very satisfying. Paint, it's amazing. I mean, you just got to kind of strip back, you know,
what you think you know.
Yeah, and then just go to the basics. And it's very challenging at times.
Have you had to learn sign then?
Yes. So we have at work sign language Makaton lessons every week in the mornings, and we definitely use them. It's very important.
And I'm sure it's very, very helpful. I think, you know, we don't realise that it's not just about children with special needs that, you know, use sign. I think it's a brilliant way of communicating with people who possibly don't have Down syndrome or autism. There are lots of people who would benefit from somebody who actually is able to sign, and I think it's a beautiful skill to have. And inshallah, we'll come back to the rest of the discussion. It's been a really beautiful discussion so far, but we do have to take a quick break. We will be back, inshallah, to continue on with the discussion of Down syndrome. So stay with us, and we'll be back shortly. Assalamu alaikum. And welcome back to Women's AM. This morning I'm joined by Sister Nusrat and Sister Jihad to continue our discussion on living with Down syndrome. Now, if you want to share with us on this topic, maybe your own experiences, or you'd like to give us some tips or anything that you've been through, please do call in. The number is on your screen now. So we talked a little bit about Down syndrome, what it is, how it affects children with Down syndrome, some of the challenges and joys that parents and teachers will face in terms of teaching and dealing with a child who has Down syndrome. But let's look a little bit about us as a community and how we respond and react to people with disabilities, and in particular with those with Down syndrome within the community. What do you feel has been sort of the prevalent or the most common sort of response within the Muslim community?
To be fairly honest, not great, which is really sad because, you know, alhamdulillah, this is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, Allah has given you this child with this need, with this disability. You know, we should just take it on board and embrace it. It's going to have its difficulties. It's going to be very, you know, hard to maintain. But there are some situations where, like, parents will hide their kids, or we're in family gatherings and they won't bring that child because of their conditions, and that affects their social skills, you know. And if anyone knows, children with Down syndrome are very affectionate, very friendly, and they want to be around people. They love having friends. They love, you know, company. But it makes me disheartened, you know, the fact that their child isn't there for, you know, whatever reasons, or he's sick or whatever. But you know, there are more to it. You know the real reasons, and it's a shame.
I think that sort of adds to sort of the prevalent sort of attitude about disability within the Muslim community, that it's something to be ashamed of and it's something that needs to be hidden. And I think when families do that within families, I think, you know, you can't really expect much, you know, on a community scale, because if everyone is doing this as a family, then no one is going to change that attitude.
Yeah, precisely that point. I think that when people don't know how to deal with something, and this is also a human thing, when we don't know how to deal with something, we tend to either A, pretend it doesn't exist, or B, if it does exist, keep it to ourselves and hide it. And I think that this is not really a way in which to move forward or get people to understand, because ultimately people with Down syndrome or people with disabilities in general are very much a part of the community. They are creations of God first and foremost. So I think that because also within the community there's not as much awareness or increased awareness about things like Down syndrome, people then find difficulty, or in some cases quite outward reluctance in some of what you've experienced, to want to try and reach out to people. And this is made worse when the proper provisions are not actually made for such people. Within the wider society, this also is a bit of an issue as well, because there are attitudes of prejudice and fewer inclusionary methods to try and engage people with Down syndrome. And this is part of the reason why hate crime against disabled people is actually rising, sadly. And there was actually a quote that was written by Renate Lindemann, who's the founder of a blog called Down Pride. And she's got 3 children with 2 who have Down syndrome. And she actually said, many of today's parents can remember a time when the word Mongol was used to describe people with Down syndrome, and they were institutionalized. People didn't think that those with Down syndrome could develop and learn. So the fact that this was back then, and even now to an extent, people still harbour those views, it shows that actually in terms of moving forward, we've not really moved as much as we should. But considering that it's part of our Islamic tradition, and we look at it in the context of the Muslim community, to include everybody, and we recognise each one of us as being manifestations of God's creation, this is what makes it very ironic and hard to bear.
And I think it's quite interesting in that, you know, when you have family gatherings, say for example, for those who've just had a child who, you know, quite clearly has a disability, whether it's Down syndrome or something else, you know, you can see the reaction from family members and those, you know, in the community. You know, they treat it almost as if there's been a death in the family. You know, they'll say, "Oh, subhanAllah, I'm so sorry." You know, and it's something that obviously, yes, it's going to be challenging and difficult for the parents. You know, they have to learn many skills and many things, and, you know, helping to raise that child in the best way that they can with this, with whatever disability they may have. But then to get that reaction as well from family members, friends, people within the community is also disheartening, because then it makes you feel like, oh no, then what am I going to do if everyone's reacting in this way towards my child? You know, how can I possibly cope with this? Alhamdulillah, we do have a caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum, sister. Do you have a comment, sister?
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Yes, sister, you're through to the show. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I say to Ayan and for you, Jazakallah khairan.
I think I know who this is. Is this my auntie?
Yeah, I have
Thank you for calling. This is my auntie Sahra. She knows because my auntie Sahra has a son who has Down syndrome, mashallah.
May Allah reward you with
So,
that.
and Habr Sahra, is there a message that you want to give to anybody
That's
that's
right,
watching?
that's right. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair.
Oh, Jazakallah, auntie. I think this is just a message
say
of support.
thank
Yeah.
you.
I think it's one of those things that when you have people within the community who
Yes.
understand and who support you in whatever regards with the disability with your child, I think it makes you feel like you belong. And I think when you have the community who disregard your child's disability, who don't want to know, you do feel like you're quite alone and isolated.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it very difficult to seek out support and help, which is what you see happening quite often within the Muslim community.
But even notions of, I think on the other extreme, we do have people that behave in a very patronising manner towards people with disabilities, which I think is equally as counterproductive as well.
It's true, and I think my auntie Sahara being one of the prime examples, I think she's helped educate us as a family
amazing. Well done,
in
auntie.
regards to Down syndrome, because to be honest, we'd never had anyone with Down syndrome in our family prior to my baby cousin. He's a beautiful little boy. He's 4 years old. His name is Abdullah. He's the sweetest little boy that you could ever meet.
Yeah.
And I think, it's helped us understand a little bit better, because I think sometimes it's quite hard to take in some of these lessons until